Hello and welcome to page number 4 of Paperbound Monsters. This week's theme is caves, as suggested by one of our subscribers on YouTube. Let's begin, shall we? Our first story is from r/stayawake. It was posted 1 year ago as of reading, and the title reads, I went cave exploring with some friends. I'm the only one that survived. I used to think Mammoth Cave was just another adventure, a tick off our list. It was supposed to be a fun weekend to explore the shadows with my best friends, to test our nerves in the endless dark. But somewhere down there, under miles of stone, something went wrong. Now one of us is missing, and I swear, I can still hear him calling. We'd been going for hours, our voices echoing through the tunnels, each one mocking the confidence we had when we started. There was me, Sam, and my friends Luke, Jared, and Ben. Ben was always the daring one, the first to wander ahead, the one who'd get us into trouble just to laugh it off. But when he didn't come back, no one was laughing. It's strange. We retraced our steps, searched every crevice, calling his name until our voices scraped raw. Nothing. Just an endless silence, heavy and swallowing. And then the faintest echo, like Ben's voice drifting from somewhere deep in the shadows. Luke was the first to hear him calling. He stopped dead, his hand shooting up as we walked, telling us to listen. We froze, straining against the thick silence. Did you hear that? He whispered, his voice barely louder than a breath. None of us had, but as we stood there letting the silence settle around us, we heard it, a faint, distant call, almost swallowed by the stone around us. It was Ben's voice, unmistakably. He was calling out, the sound barely reaching us but bouncing off the cave walls in strange warped echoes. The direction was wrong, though. The call wasn't coming from where we'd last seen him. It was coming from one of the tunnels we hadn't even traveled down. But maybe somehow the paths were connected. It wasn't impossible for cave tunnels to intersect. We were probably about 2 miles down at this point, so deep that the silence felt alive, closing in around us. The chill in the air seeped into our bones, and every breath echoed back like a reminder of how far we'd come. The walls felt tighter here, the space around us shrinking with each step. Our lights cast shaky beams on the rough stone, cutting through just enough darkness to keep us moving. We'd packed extra batteries, sure, but even with the supplies, an uneasy feeling twisted in my gut. Still, leaving wasn't an option. Ben was down there somewhere, and we couldn't just abandon him in the dark. We walked down a few hundred feet, calling out Ben's name into the darkness, then waiting in silence, hoping for any kind of response. The cave swallowed our voices, leaving only the faint drip of water somewhere far off. Then, after what felt like ages, we heard him. It came from behind us. What the fuck? Luke whispered, his voice tight and shaky, eyes darting back toward the path we'd just covered. Jared, louder than any of us, shouted back, All right, Ben, you can stop messing with us now, man. This isn't funny, bro. I wanted to believe it, that Ben was just messing with us, hiding in some shadowed nook and waiting to jump out. But as I stared into the empty tunnel behind us, a chill crept over me. I couldn't shake the feeling that somehow it wasn't really Ben. We backtracked, our lights slicing through the shadows as we searched every inch of the area. We moved slowly, scouring every nook, every crack in the walls, but there wasn't a single trace of Ben. Not a footprint, not even a scuff mark. He was just gone. Eventually, we returned to the central cavern, slumping down on the cold stone to catch our breath and regroup. I told the others what had been gnawing at me, the dread curling around my thoughts, but Luke was quick to brush it off. Oh, come on, man. You know Ben is just fucking with us, he said, his tone forced, like he was trying to convince me and himself. Well, how did he end up back there then? When he was down there before? I shot back. I'm telling you guys, something isn't right. Before anyone could answer, Ben's voice echoed again, faint but unmistakable. This time it came from the tunnel we'd seen him go down first. "Come on, guys, this way." His voice drifted down the rocky corridors, a lazy drawl that somehow felt wrong. Jared sprang to his feet, shouting down the tunnel, "Screw you, Ben! When I see you, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you!" Then we heard it. A low, chuckling laugh. The sound echoing, but from a completely different tunnel. Luke and Jared exchanged glances, the bravado draining from their faces. It was like the air had thickened and now they felt it too. Something was off. A chill crept over all of us, settling in our bones as Ben's laughter faded into the shadows. We huddled together, whispering hurriedly about what to do. The idea of leaving came up quick, but Luke shut it down fast. "We can't just leave Ben down here, guys," he insisted, voice firm but edged with unease. Jared shook his head, glancing toward the distant exit. "I'm going. I'll call the cops and tell them our friend's missing. I'll come back with a search party." It wasn't a bad idea, honestly. Part of me felt relief at the thought of professionals with equipment and experience. But Luke wouldn't budge. His jaw set, determination in his eyes. He wanted to keep looking, convinced that Ben was close, just around the next corner. Jared didn't wait for more argument. With the last look back, he took off down the path toward the exit, his flashlight bouncing along the walls until he was out of sight. Luke and I stood there in silence, the weight of the decision hanging heavy between us. Eventually, we decided to search a little longer. Just a little longer, we told ourselves. After Jared disappeared from sight, Luke and I ventured down the same tunnel Ben had vanished into. We called out, voices barely steady, and after a moment, Ben's voice drifted back, faint and distorted, like it was caught in a slow echo. The sound seeped out of the dark. A narrow crevice ahead, just wide enough for us to squeeze through. We moved cautiously, each step slower than the last, feeling a prickling sensation on our necks, like unseen eyes were watching us from the shadows. The path bent sharply to the right, creating the illusion that it might loop back toward one of the other tunnels. Luke forced a chuckle. "See, he's just messing with us." But as we rounded the corner, our lights caught something that made us stop dead. A jagged hole yawned open in the middle of the path, wide and deep, cutting off the tunnel. The space was too narrow to walk side by side, so I trailed behind Luke as he edged forward and aimed his flashlight down into the darkness below. Luke went silent, his light fixed on something I couldn't see. I waited, the quiet pressing in until the tension grew unbearable. "What is it?" I whispered, trying to peer around him. When he turned to me, his face was drained of color, eyes wide, lips parted like he couldn't quite find the words. He swallowed, barely managing to get it out. "He's down there," Luke said, his voice trembling. My blood ran cold. What do you mean?" I stammered, heart pounding against my ribs. "He's down there, Sam," Luke's voice whispered, cracking. "Dead." The words hit me like a punch. I stood there numb with disbelief, until Luke grabbed my arm, his grip almost painful. "We've got to get out of here," he said, his voice tight with terror. Without another word, we turned and started back, moving faster, but steady, our lights casting frantic beams along the rough stone walls. As we reached the tunnel that led back to the central cavern, another voice echoed through the darkness. "Guys?" Neither of us paused. We broke into a sprint, feet pounding against the ground, breaths ragged with panic. We didn't care where it was coming from, we just wanted out. In his haste, Luke stumbled over a jagged rock and fell hard, his flashlight skidding across the ground before shattering into pieces. I stopped, reaching down to pull him up, my light sweeping the walls as I moved, and that's when I saw it. A figure, pale and naked, crouched at the far end of the tunnel, watching us with hollow, empty eyes. It looked almost human, but something was horribly, horribly wrong. "Oh my God," I muttered, my voice barely a whisper, trembling as I stared at the figure. Luke turned, catching sight of it, his face twisting in terror. He grabbed my arm, jolting me out of my daze. "Come on, Sam," he urged, pulling me forward. We didn't look back, rushing through the darkness, desperate to put as much distance as possible between us and whatever that thing was. Every shadow felt like it was closing in on us, every echo stretching our nerves tighter. As we reached the main tunnel that led out of the cave, we saw a figure lying on the ground ahead. Jared. He was sprawled face down, motionless, his flashlight lying a few feet away, casting an eerie glow on the stone. "Oh, God," I breathed, heart racing as we knelt beside him. He must have tripped, maybe knocked himself out in his rush to get out. But when we turned him over, the breath left my lungs. His face was unrecognizable, crushed and bloodied, as if something had beaten him down over and over. The horror of it froze us in place and we could barely think, only feel the cold grip of fear sinking deeper into my bones. That's when I heard it, a voice drifting from the shadows. But this time, it wasn't Ben's. It was Jared's. "Come on, guys. This way," the voice called, soft and taunting. I swung my flashlight toward the sound, heart hammering, and there it was, standing just beyond the light's reach. Pale, humanoid, but wrong in every way. Its skin was chalky, almost luminescent under the beam, and its eyes solid black, empty and endless. The thing stared at us for a moment and then turned, its movements jerky and unnatural, and ran down the tunnel laughing in Jared's voice, a sick, twisted echo of the friend that we'd known. "What the hell?" Luke whispered, voice barely audible over my pounding heart. He grabbed my arm, his grip trembling. "We've got to get out of here, man." I didn't need any convincing. We bolted, feet slamming against the stone, the darkness stretching ahead of us like a maw, ready to swallow us whole. As we ran, the creature's footsteps echoed close behind, its pace relentless. My heart pounded, my breaths coming in ragged gasps as we pushed forward. Suddenly, Luke stumbled and fell, hitting the ground hard. I skipped to a stop, spinning around, and that's when I saw it. The creature had caught up to him, gripping his leg, and started to drag him back into the shadows. Luke clawed at the ground, his face contorted in terror. Without thinking, I shone my flashlight directly on it, and as the beam hit it, the creature shrank back, raising its long, bony arms to shield its huge black eyes. It couldn't stand the light, that much was clear. I stepped toward Luke, light fixed on the creature as it hissed and retreated, slipping back into the pitch-black depths of the cave. We backed away slowly, both of us trembling, the silence around us settling like a heavy weight. We kept moving, trying to keep our eyes steady, though every nerve in our bodies screamed to run. Luke fumbled in his bag, pulling out his spare flashlight. And now, with both beams cutting through the shadows, we scanned every crevice, every dark corner around us. The creature was silent now, but its presence clung to us. A feeling so thick it was hard to breathe. We both knew that it was clear and still near, lurking just out of sight, watching and waiting. Minutes stretched on, each one more suffocating than the last. But then, just as panic threatened to take over, we saw it. The cave entrance. A sliver of remaining daylight spilling in, piercing through the darkness like a lifeline. It was so close. A beacon of hope after the nightmare that had nearly swallowed us whole. We made it. Or at least we thought we did. Step by step, we edged closer to the exit, the sunlight drawing us in, so close I could almost feel its warmth. But just as we reached the final stretch, the creature dropped down from above, a blur of pale skin and black eyes, crashing into Luke and sending him sprawling to the ground. I whipped around, frantically aiming my light, but it was too late. In an instant, the creature pinned him down, smashing his head against the stone with brutal force. Paralyzed for a split second, my mind screamed at me to act, to do something. But instinct took over. I turned and ran, abandoning Luke's final muffled cries, leaving my friend behind. Tears streamed down my face, blurring my vision as I pushed myself forward, barely seeing the light ahead. When I finally burst out of the cave into the fading daylight, I collapsed to the ground, gasping for air, chest heaving, and the weight of loss crashing over me. The tears came hard, unstoppable, as I laid there, shattered, knowing I was the only one who'd made it out. As I forced myself to stand, steadying my breath, I heard it. Luke's voice, faint and choked with fear, calling out from the depths of the cave. "Sam, please, help me." I froze, every instinct screaming at me to ignore it, to remember what I'd seen, to remember that Luke was gone, but hearing his voice, broken and desperate, twisted my insides. The guilt clawed at me sharper than any fear. I had left him. I had abandoned him. The pleading continued, soft but relentless, each word pulling at the frayed edges of my sanity. Some part of me wanted to turn back, to run into the dark, convinced he was waiting, that I could still save him. But another part, a colder, darker part, knew the truth. It wasn't Luke. It was the creature mimicking his voice, sinking its claws into the last threads of hope that I had left. And yet, what if somehow it really was him? The thought tore at me, leaving me stranded there, helpless and shattered, unable to move forward or look back. Finally, I forced myself to turn away from the cave, each step heavier than the last. I had to leave. I had to get out and tell someone what happened, no matter how impossible it seemed. But as I reached the edge of the forest, the realization settled in. I couldn't tell them the truth. They'd never believe me. No one would. I could already picture the looks of doubt, the whispers, the judgment. So I rehearsed the lie as I stumbled into town, every word twisting in my throat. I told them we were stalked by someone in the cave, that he'd ambushed us, attacked Jared and Luke. I described a faceless killer lurking in the dark, hunting us down one by one. It was easier that way, easier than trying to explain the unexplainable. They listened and wrote it all down, but even as I spoke, a chill ran through me in the back of my mind. Luke's voice still echoed, pleading, calling me back into the dark. The cops didn't let it go. They pressed me for hours, asking the same questions over and over, watching my every reaction. Soon enough, they began talking to my friends and family, probing into my relationship with the group. I could see it in their eyes. They suspected me. I was the last one out, the only one who'd made it back, and my story didn't add up. They searched the cave for days, combing through every passage, every cavern. Eventually, they found Ben's body, crumpled up at the bottom of that pit, limbs twisted at unnatural angles. But Luke and Jared, they were gone. Their remains were never recovered. And now when I close my eyes, I still see the darkness of that cave, hear the echo of their voices, distant and pleading. No one believes me. And maybe after all this, I'm not sure if I even believe myself. The only thing I know for certain is that I'll never step foot in another cave for as long as I live. The thought alone makes my skin crawl, my heart race. The darkness isn't just unsettling to me now. It's a living, breathing terror wrapping itself around every corner and every shadow. I'm afraid of the dark in ways I never imagined, paranoia gnawing at me every time I turn off a light. Even here in my own home, I can feel it. The creature's gaze, lurking just beyond the glow of my lamp, hidden in the pockets of darkness, patient and unyielding. It's waiting for me. I can feel it lurking, watching, waiting for that one moment when I'm left alone in the dark. And I know deep down that it won't stop until it pulls me back into the shadows just like it did with them. Our next story is from r/stayawake. It was posted 5 years ago as of reading. The title reads Head/Cave. I agreed to care for my sister's children for 5 days while she and her husband vacationed in Australia. My sister has always been a hard worker. She deserved her time off. They'll be fine, I overheard her tell him. He's just a little neurotic. I tracked their flight online. I followed the schedule and instructions they provided. But 5 days became 7, then 10, and the children required constant attention and entertainment, allowing me no breaks during which to concentrate on my work. Expectation birthed anxiety, which brought a crushing end to my normally clockwork sleep cycle. I took to walking after the children dozed. I took a knife for safety. One sleepless night, I wandered out into the cold, dark winter, rejoicing in the childless solitude. If for a mere half hour, watching the falling snow fill the streetlight illumination like so much static, losing myself for so long, I gasped when she approached. An ancient woman I'd never seen, strolling as alone at night as I. "Beware," she said, passing. "The black ice." I fell. My head slammed against the concrete. I got home in a state. There was blood in my ears and a terrible throbbing behind my eyes. And as the children slept, I scoured the basement for my first aid kit. As I neared a certain section of the wall, the throbbing increased, and I noticed a crack. I kicked the wall and it crumbled. I ran upstairs and grabbed my torch and my pickaxe, both awoken and screaming. With the pickaxe, I destroyed what remained of the fraudulent wall. Emptiness. I stepped inside and ignited the torch. The depth was endless, a secret underground labyrinth. But after weeks of dark travel, the subterranean became soft and organic, terminating in a fleshy loam and what appeared to be monstrous jaws. As I neared the exit, holding tightly my burning torch, I noticed a flickering light begin to emanate from my irritated throat. The ground shifted beneath my feet. Attempting to move, I discovered myself restrained, bound to a white sheeted bed by leather straps around my wrists and ankles and forehead. I stepped forward from warmth into a chilled and sterile air. A tiny human crawled out of my mouth. I looked about the giant world. Behind me loomed a giant human head. It was me. It was me? Is this madness? I thought. I calmed myself. Climbing at my own face, I determined I was in an asylum. The straps, I thought. I heard myself think. I took out my knife and cut the strap restraining my forehead. It was thick, but I managed. Next, I freed my wrists and ankles, and finally I stood again. I put on a white coat hanging nearby and carefully picked myself up and placed myself into the coat's breast pocket. I was carried by a god. Together, I escaped the asylum. Our last story is from r/stayawake. It was posted 5 years ago as of reading. The title reads, A Hole in the Ground. Neither of us have entirely recovered from the incident yet. I expect that we will in time, but it still is a little too recent. It happened a few months ago when my boyfriend Mark and I decided to take a guided tour of a cavern whilst on holiday in Derbyshire. For your own safety and that of anyone who reads this, I won't give the exact location. It was a beautiful July day, sunny and warm. We took a cable car up to the visitor center in the late morning. We had eaten lunch and 2 ice creams, each by the time our slot for the tour came up. I suppose we were both a little overexcited. The cave was huge, and it was beautiful. A few of the tunnels were man-made. It had been a fluorspar mining during the Victorian era, but most of the openings that we could see from the main passage had been carved into the rock by flowing water over thousands of years. As we followed the tour, we deliberately hid at the back like naughty teenagers, repeatedly letting the rest of the group get ahead of us so we could explore the caverns on our own a little and take silly pictures. It was far too dark for any of them to turn out well, but we were having fun and feeling a little giddy. The tour guide had to return to where we were a few times to hurry us along. We lingered in a large chamber as the guide was distracted by a family with 2 young children who had decided that he was going to earn his wage that day by answering every question they had. They were at a macabre age. It seemed we were, particularly interested in how many people had died down there and whether the caves might be haunted. Their parents stood by, smiling indulgently at their morbid little angels. "Well," said the guide, "there have been mining accidents down here. Conditions were quite dangerous back then. As to whether the place is haunted, I'll have to leave that for you to decide." He leaned down towards the children, conspiratorially. "But some of the other guides have said that when they're down here alone, they can hear scraping in the walls." The children giggled, wide-eyed. Behind them, their mother dramatically clutched her hands to her chest and explained, "Oh, how spooky!" Beside me, I heard Mark give a snort of laughter. He and I were lurking near the back of the group again so that we could examine some of the pretty crystals that covered the walls in patches. The cavern had a few dim lights dotted throughout so that we could all see where we were going, but they were nowhere near illuminating enough to drive away the darkness. They were, however, different colors, giving the crystals a pleasant rainbow hue. We wanted more time to take pictures than we had been given, so we hid ourselves in the shadows whilst the group moved on to the next section. "Oh no," I said to Mark as we stepped, laughing back onto the path. "Somehow we've been left behind again." I spent a few minutes taking photos, first of Mark doing comical poses, and then of the crystals. Everything was coming out blurry though, so I eventually gave up. "Come on, we better go," I said, tucking my phone back into my pocket. But Mark didn't follow me. He had wandered into a recess in the wall off to the side of the path. A small area had been cordoned off with a chest-high plastic barrier. I joined him beside it and looked down. There was a hole. A tunnel dropped straight down for 8 meters or so, then sharply curved off to the side. The light in the cavern was just bright enough for us to see down it. It was maybe 1 meter or so in diameter, easily big enough for a person to fit down. "Ooh," Mark said, grinning at me. "Spooky." I tugged his sleeve. "Leave the spooky stuff alone and let's go, or the guide will tell us off again." "If you were a proper adventurer," Mark declared, laughter in his voice, "you'd want to explore down there." "Fuck off," I exclaimed. "I'll leave that nonsense to the potholers and cave divers. Don't you remember that John Jones guy and how he died?" I knew he did. The story had messed me up for a while. Mark gave the plastic wall a little tug. There was clearly no real intent, he was just winding me up, but to both of our surprise, it lifted up completely and came away. "Oh," said Mark, standing there and holding it. "I didn't expect that." He placed it down against the wall, then gave me a huge smile. "It's like the universe wants us to go down there." I glanced down at the hole, feeling an unpleasant rush of vertigo at the drop and a little chill of fear at the darkness down there. "Come on," I pleaded, stepping away. "Don't mess around." He saw that I was genuinely a little distressed and softened. "I'm sorry, love. I was just messing around. Of course I remember John Jones." He turned to pick up the screen. "I'll just put this back and then we can..." But he didn't finish the sentence. As he reached to pick up the plastic curve, his foot slipped on the wet rock, and with an awkward twist, he tumbled into the hole. I cried out in fear and lunged forward to grab him, my hands clamping around one of his arms as he fell. I was nowhere near strong enough to catch him, but it seemed to slow him enough that he could grab onto the edge and prevent himself from disappearing completely into the darkness. I released his arm and instead twisted my fingers into the back of his shirt, hoping to help him as he tried to pull himself up, but I couldn't get enough of a grip. If I could just reach a little further down and grab his belt, that might do it, but kneeling down at the side of the hole as I was, I felt a little precarious and I was afraid that I would tip in too. Before I could start calling for help, something deeper into the hole caught my eye beyond Mark. right where the tunnel curved into the darkness, was a tiny glint of light. I stared at it in confusion. What was I seeing? My brain tried telling me that it was just one of the lights reflecting off a crystal, but I rebelled against that, knowing that it was something else. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I could finally make out what I was looking at. It was an eye. Down in the hole where the tunnel disappeared from sight, a face was peering up at me. Only half of it was visible, the rest hidden behind rock, but I could make out its 2 small pupils, a hole of a nose, and a gaping smile wider than what seemed possible, splitting the face open. I could make out its large, flat teeth and the shine of saliva dripping down its chin. A violent shudder ran through me, and the only sound I could hear was my heart pounding in my ears. For a moment, I was completely paralyzed by fear, and then the face began to move out into the tunnel. With a cry of horror and my previous concerns immediately forgotten, I lunged forward to grab Mark's belt. I yanked on it, my muscles burning with the exertion. My eyes locked onto the thing in the hole. "Climb up!" I screamed at Mark. Up! Get up! Jesus Christ, you've got to get out!" Mark had no idea what was happening, but was clearly affected by my sudden terror. He began to scrabble desperately against the wall, his feet pushing against the wet rock, wrenching himself up to try and gain purchase with his hands. I was trying to lift him, pulling as hard as I could, but God, I was so weak and he was so heavy. My screams had become wails as we made no ground, and that thing was getting closer. Still just a face in the dark, but climbing. Its split grin growing wider, coming closer and closer to my boy. And then suddenly Mark was rising up. I barely registered that there were other people there, other hands lifting him out. We were both dumped unceremoniously on the floor, where we lay, beyond exhausted. I was almost oblivious to their concerned questions or the tour guide standing over me, angrily asking why we'd moved the screen and what we thought we'd been playing at. I just hung on to Mark and cried, my eyes still locked onto the hole in the rock and what might come out of it. But there was just darkness. Unsurprisingly, the tour was cut short, and we were taken back to the entrance, given stern words and told not to come back. On the cable car ride/trip back to the car park, Mark just held my hand in silence, and it wasn't until we were out on the other side that he finally asked me what I'd seen down there. I told him, even though I knew it sounded ridiculous. I didn't expect him to believe me. Out here in the bright sunshine, I was trying to doubt it myself. He paused for a moment. "It did seem," he said carefully, "that just before they pulled me out, I felt fingers on my ankle." I exhaled softly. Then I reached over and gripped his hand. We won't be visiting any more caves. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Paperbound Monsters. May the monsters stay within these pages. Have you ever experienced any strange caves? Gone spelunking where maybe you shouldn't have? Tell me in the comments below. And also, feel free to leave suggestions for more stories and prompts and things that we can use in future episodes. Thank you so much for listening, and happy resting.